Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and it's a very long overdue video. Before the events in December even started, I was playing and making a Crackling Lance Inquisitor. I wanted to try out Crackling Lance again because it's been a while, and it's also got a new microtransaction, as you can see, the Celestial Crackling Lance, and as well as that, I wanted to give Fanaticism another shot. Can't remember what I did last time with it. Maybe it was Stormcall, and that is honestly probably still the play. But I wanted to give Fanaticism another shot in modern day PoE, and it's still kind of a clumsy mess that you can just get used to well enough and make work for you, but it's still just, I'm not a big fan of like rotational buffs where you can sometimes have a larger amount of power and sometimes not. It leaves you feeling a bit in between places. In any case, Fanaticism, if you're unaware, is 75% more area, cast speed, and reduced mana cost. It's a 4-second buff, and you need to attack 4 times to get it up. No more than 1 charge per second. So it takes a minimum 4 seconds to get it up, and we are using shield charge in this case, and you can maybe sometimes notice it's those little golden circle buffs in the bar at the top, and then you get 4 seconds of huge extra cast speed. So the idea behind this character was to stack basically as much cast speed as possible to remove the shortcoming of Crackling Lance of standing still and having to get your sort of conal attack into your beam attack, and you get intensify so that you get more intensify stacks and more damage as you get into the beam phase. This character did end up stacking quite a lot of attack, cast speed, and then especially with the freaking Fanaticism involved as well, it goes off when that happens. It's just a bit clumsy to have the Fanaticism, and then also Crackling Lance still has kind of this clumsy issue where once you become that single target beam, you can't like do other things, and you have to just like beam around like slowly into targets near you or move. So you kind of then need the threshold, not threshold, sorry, it's just a unique jewel from Heist that can either add or remove stacks of intensify as you want to, when you're moving or not moving based off of the jewel itself. And I've never used that because I really don't want to sacrifice a jewel slot, and then it forces you to either be all area or all single target, and maybe it'll be usable for just plain bosses and pure single target. But overall, probably still just too clumsy to be doing Fanaticism unless you are doing it with a build and a skill that doesn't care about the buff. So I think that was when I did Stormcall. It made more sense there because Stormcall doesn't really need Fanaticism. You've got good spell cascade and just good area coverage, and then when you do get Fanaticism up, it's a huge benefit. As well as that, you can see I tested Arc a bit on this character, so this is all prior to getting buffed for self-cast in the next patch, and the builds are going to have about 50 to 60% more damage, which is quite a lot, and it will make this shit much more viable. My character's gear is fairly well rounded, and can't get too much more damage out of it without spending tens more exalts. So it's already looking about as good as it can be, and then add about 50 to 60% more on top just means that you can get to the same stage that I'm at way cheaper and quicker. And I think most basic characters should have like similar levels of DPS as this one now, except it's up to whether or not you're going to be getting the cast speed where you need to get it. So Arc itself is decent for clear. It's pretty fun to play, and we're using Reaaaaal Arc even without the Arc setup, just while using Crackling Lance. It helps a lot, and Arc's okay for clear. It's single target, is still kind of whatever. I didn't have the... Actually, no, that's a lie. I also tried to use the Helm enchant when going full Arc, and it's looking at the POB, even just now, Arc has something like a third of the DPS Crackling Lance has for single target. So it's never going to be a big single target winner, but it can kill bosses and it can sort of clear very nicely, but as you can see, all content I'm doing on this character is basically double, triple beyonds, and it still does well on that. If it's just regular maps, of course, you'll be clearing a lot nicer, and the self-cast builds are certainly going to be something you can get much more acquainted with in this new expansion and patch quite a bit easier. But Crackling Lance itself, I'm really not sure where it kind of stands, because on the closed maps like the waste pools and toxic sewers, it feels okay, and you never really feel bad about either being the beam phase or the cone phase. And on boss fights with Fanaticism, it's really uncomfortable trying to get your Fanaticism up. So if you just ignored Fanaticism entirely and just went the Inquisitor side of things without Trinity, just using ignore enemy resists, then you'd lose about 1 million top end damage. So this character has like 6 to 7 million with Fanaticism up, about 4 million without Fanaticism up, something like that. Instead, you could trade in Fanaticism for just the permanent resist uptime thing, and then it's about 5.5 million. So there's no higher damage, but your low end is a lot higher, sorry. And overall, probably the play to be making. You don't have to use Trinity then, or care about Trinity stacks. And then it's okay damage. So this character would then instead be something like, 8 to 10 million damage with the new expansion, and you wouldn't have to worry about Fanaticism, and you wouldn't have any high or low rolls. But it'd still be Crackling Lance, where you have to make sure you're in beam phase, and that's the only time you're doing any good damage. So I don't know, not too sold on Crackling Lance. I did make it work well enough, and I did play it all the way through most bosses and all that shit, but from my own perspective, it's kind of uncomfortable to map with, and even though I was using an Impulsor, I think for Impulsor to actually work well right now, you need Storm of the Gift Gloves, the ones that have like shock, prolif sort of thing. Without that, Impulsor honestly just didn't feel like it was doing almost anything. So that's a bit sad on that front. But you could get the gloves, and then yeah, Crackling Lance would just clear very well. I didn't do that this time around because I think I did that on my last Crackling Lance character, and yes, it explodes the entire screen very nicely, and that's basically a solution for Crackling Lance feeling awkward. And here I try to just commit and 1v1 Cirrus after taking all the damage, and we die. No big deal. So yeah, in the end, I think Crackling Lance is still just a bit awkward to play normally, and Arc is probably going to be just a bit low on single target in endgame, but it's probably not something you'll feel for a long time. So by all means, if you want to make an Arc starter, I think it'll be okay. I think Coil Brotherhood is still pretty damn necessary for these builds, just to be able to freeze things in maps, but you don't have to go that route. You could just not care about the freeze. Otherwise, I think Storm Coil probably going to be one of the nicer lightning self-casts. As far as other lightning self-casts are concerned, Spark probably be pretty good these days as well, maybe. But yeah, in general, self-casting will be quite a bit easier next patch, I think. I felt like this character was missing maybe 40 to 50% more damage to truly shit on bosses, and give it that extra, and yeah, it'll probably just blow things up quite a bit quicker. Standing still, being beam, all of that won't feel as bad. So let me just show you real quick what the character looks like and how I put him together. So the character is an Inquisitor, level 92, Brudge, there's no time left, just an emote that, I had like a few days before the new event started. So level 92, based around the Crackling Lance gem. Basically, it's got built-in Intensify, so it starts out doing some level of area that then turns into a beam the more you attack. With no microtransactions whatsoever, it looks like this. Like this. Gets a bit smaller every time as you intensify until you're into a beam action, and then you're a beam. And then we get Fanaticism charges by shield charging. You can get 1 per second once you're at 4 stacks, and we go ultimate cast speed. It looks something like that. but it's got a fancy new microtransaction. That's why I was using it. So looks something like that. That's without Fanaticism. We do still have a lot of cast speed, but even though I have that much, doesn't feel like that much until you have Fanaticism up. 356% cast speed modifier at the moment, and if we incorporate everything, hold on, let's do that as well. Incorporate everything, 877 is what I'm at with Fanaticism. So we're building around that. You do use Intensify because that also gives you large multipliers for your Intensify, and I'm currently using the Divergent. Lose intensity with 40% increased frequency while moving. Just, it's kind of a clear speed one, so that, you know, as you're moving around, you are losing your Intensify stacks, and then you are getting the conal clear more often during your mapping. Then using crit strikes, using Divergent Spell Echo, which does 20% less to your skill, but then 60% more on the second repeat, and then level 5 added lightning and anomalous Trinity. Trinity doesn't need to be anomalous, just what I had. But Trinity, because we're not using the Inquisitor node down here, and you could forego the entire Fanaticism side and just do that and be more reliable, as I mentioned. And then it's also got much better crit at that point too. But this character, to take Fanaticism, basically you can't do any of that, because we really do need these nodes for the standstill playstyle of the build. To be able to take damage, regen, and also maintain with Eldritch Battery through the hat. So that's that, and I'm using a +2 impulses, you know, not too expensive or hard to get during Scourge League, because you can always just link things up after the fact. Otherwise, impulses honestly didn't feel like it was doing much in the explosion side of things. I think it would have been completely fine to just get a Shaper chest that has base crit, so 1.5 crit on it, and a +1 if you could as well, and then you wouldn't need to use crit strikes, and then ultimately probably a better setup than this. I was hoping the Impulsor would carry clear a bit more, really didn't feel like it was. So we have a Devouring Diadem with branching range on our Crackling Lance, just for the cone to do a bit more. I don't think that was very necessary either. If I could have, would have got the cast speed helm enchant instead. What we have in here is this helm allows us to cast off of our mana because it gives Eldritch Battery and turns our energy shield into mana, and that means that we really don't have to care about mana for this character ever. And considering 110 mana and we're casting as fast as we are, it is kind of nice to take care of that. And it also lets us reserve a lot of auras. So Determination, Enlighten level 3, Wrath, and then Zealotry, combined with these nodes over here, lets us reserve a whole lot of shit. Also got Vitality at a high level too. There it is, level 19. What else do we need to mention? So I'm also using a pair of gloves that are pseudo 5-linked, so they just have a Shaper cast speed thing on there, and then I've chucked a Hydrosphere in there. That's just what gives me exposure, bit of extra damage for minus resists on enemies. Not using it for anything other than that, really. I mean, it does a bit of extra AoE. Otherwise, I was using Orb of Storms for a long time, and that feels like it's a nicer map clear adjuster for the build. You know, just run around Orb of Storms and then be like attacking. Up to you what you do with that. Could use Orb of Storms, could use Hydrosphere. And then it's also got Area, Onslaught, and Power Charge on crit. So it's a bit of utility stuff for bosses as well. I then have a Assassin Mark Ring. Obviously, next patch you won't need to do that. You probably do a Mark on Hit or Curse if you want. And you can still do Mark on Hit and stuff with these types of characters if you are shield charging into enemies. We then have Call of Brotherhood, so our damage gets split basically down the middle, 50-50 lightning and cold, and that's why we can still use Trinity reliably. As you can see, my damage is 1300, 5700 lightning, 1200, 5600 cold, so it'll pretty much alternate between highest damage source, and then you still get Trinity up that way. Grabbed an amulet that had a veil on it, or I unveiled it, I can't fucking remember, but the veil there is the Chosen, bit of extra area and damage, and then cast speed crit multi. Grabbed a shield, just bought this one pretty cheap. All we were looking for was +1 and some spell crit, and then a spare suffix if possible, so I can get the double damage focus, because basically we're lining up double damage focus with our Fanaticism and then just going off. And it's also got min power charges, bit of life. Yep. Crafted a wand, grabbed one with crit multi fracture, and then just chucked a whole bunch of essences of cast speed until I got some good results. I got a lot of +1s, but lightnings were kind of unlucky. Ended up seeing a few +1 lightnings, and this is the one I just ended up keeping because honestly I was getting kind of unlucky in good rolls. So all I was looking for was a cast speed base, cast speed essences, and then trying to get a +1 and then a spare suffix for the double damage thing. But many different directions you can go with wands, honestly, like more spell damage, crit multi as a craft or some shit, or crit chance on it, or lots of extra lightning to spells, whatever. Some tailwind boots. These are just the ones I use pretty much all league. Just, you know, get tailwind and then do something with your suffixes, lock your suffixes, and then unveil orb. So it's pretty reliable to get a good pair of boots. It would just cost a few exalts, like 2 or 3 exalts to get to the stage. If you get a little bit lucky here or there. And just a belt that does a bunch of regen, bunch of life, regen. And since we are Inquisitor, that applies to all of our energy shield as well. So currently have 900 life a second regen, 800 energy shield regen. So it's pretty impossible to run out of mana or energy shield while casting, and it's a good bit of extra thickness. And because I've got that much energy shield, I also take mind over matter to let the energy shield take some of the damage for us, because 4.6k life, it's not huge. Ideally get about 5k and then also have the mind over matter, but that's what I'm currently dealing with there. Anything else we need to mention? I was using Frostblink, kind of lazy. You can use Frostblink or Flame Dash, doesn't really matter. Lightning Golem, Righteous Fire just for Vaal RF every now and again. I did have a Vaal arc set up, just helping for clear on this build, because clear can feel a bit shit with Crackling Lance occasionally. And that's pretty much it on that front. We then have the passive tree. Tried to like just go for unreasonable amounts of cast speed, so it isn't necessarily how you should build a pure caster, but I did go all of the cast speed nodes there, grabbed glancing blows and a bit of block and stuff so I could actually take a few hits, got an extra power charge, and then my jewels do crit multi and cast speeds. We then have increased effect of non-damaging ailments on this one, and another one over there. So my shocks, for the most part, are like 40 to 50% on all bosses. I was having a look at that just earlier. And yeah, just cast speed, crit multi. Went the crit against shock over here. Bunch of cast speed, bunch of cast speed. The +1 intensify, pretty important. Bit more cast speed. And then a Watcher's Eye that gives some armor during determination and some penetration with your zealotry. And then try and get down to the cast speed, bit more crit multi. Pretty basic tree, I think. And yeah, Fanaticism. Don't know if it's worth. Self-cast looks like it should be pretty decent next league. The micros on this character are the new armor supporter Ravager, and then I just mixed and matched a bunch of other shit. Spectre Hood, Misery Wings, using Golden Character Effect. Without it, it looks something like that. And I was using Midnight Character Effect for a lot of the time on this character too. But the gold looks pretty fancy. Yeah, so I think self-casts do look like they're going to be pretty good. So imagine having another +5 levels on this shit right now. It'd be pretty nutty. Or just imagine not needing any of the plus levels on my current gear. All of it starts to look pretty crap by comparison if you've got none of that necessary. Just losing 5 levels and all of a sudden this is just a basic level 20. Yeah, it becomes much more realistic. Don't know about the whole arc for boss fighting still. Maybe it needs to be like Archmage or some shit, or maybe it needs to be Ignite. But for self-cast, it'll get you to like 3 or 4 mil in DPS probably. And it'll feel okay. Don't know what else to say there. Maybe Orbistorm is going to factor in more next patch. I have to wait and see on that one. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.